Welcome back, Bucs fans, to another episode of Here Are the Cannons, presented by BucsGameday.com, Sports Illustrated's one and only website strictly dedicated to covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My name is Caleb at CHS01X. I'm a writer and reporter here with Bucs Game Day. Along with me, as always, and a dear friend of mine, River Wells at River H. Wells on X, our lead editor at BucsGameday.com. We've got a slew of things to cover with you guys today. From everything, but right before we get to that, head over to BucsGameday.com. We just published an article talking about the tush push, which is staying put, and we're going to dive into that as we keep going through the show. But starting off, River, some big news for Buccaneers fans. A tragic thing that he's not inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but Simeon Rice is going to be inducted on November 30th, I believe. Inducted into the Buccaneers Ring of Honor. What are your initial thoughts on that? I think he's more than deserving to be put into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But your quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, he was a crucial part of that Buccaneers defense in 2002, right? He had a lot to contend with there on that line. You had Warren Sapp, obviously, right in there in the middle, and then you had Rondé Barber in the secondary, and then you had Derek Brooks, back there lurking. But a big part of the Tampa 2 that really made it work the way that it did was the ability to rush the quarterback to make a quick throw and to force him to go off platform. And then that's how you got those interceptions from Brooks and Barber and whatnot. And a big part of that was Simeon Rice coming from the edge, right, and being a disruptor. And I think that's definitely a key for that Buccaneers defense to end up winning that Super Bowl the way they did and played really well in the years prior, But, I mean, in 2002, you look at the stats here, 15 and a half sacks, 15 in 2003, 11 in 2001, 12 in 2004, 14 in 2005. I mean, that's some crazy production, right? So I think it's definitely worthy of a Ring of Honor bid. And without him, there's an argument to be made that scheme and that defense is not nearly as effective. So I think it's about time he joins all the rest of his teammates.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that he's not got a bust of his own and a gold jacket of his own either. But, he's kind of putting that behind him. He's, hopefully this will kind of right some of those mistakes that the NFL hasn't seen him worthy of being able to get in. But he joins a long list of Tampa Bay Buccaneers that are in the Ring of Honor. Most notably, the most recent being Bruce Arians, bringing Tampa Bay Buccaneers their most recent Super Bowl. And then John Gruden, former head coach, who also brought Tampa Bay a Super Bowl, being re-inducted into the Ring of Honor there in Tampa Bay. But with that being said, and Simeon Rice coming up here this season, who are your next 5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers we should be keeping an eye on to, start hearing some rumblings of them potentially being added to the Ring of Honor?
Next 5? Ooh, that's a lot.
If you can't think of 5, give me 3.
That's fine. That's fine. I'll give you a few. Tom Brady is an obvious one. And I know there will be arguments from fans saying, oh, he didn't play here that long. But I think what he's given to the franchise is quite impressive. That Super Bowl luring a lot of the national eyes on Tampa Bay and arguably helping fix the culture, there and his presence there, helping Jason Light and helping all the players in that locker room, understand what the standard would be going forward. And Tampa Bay fans will always love him for what he did here. He has been very kind to Tampa Bay since leaving. It was clear that it was, just like the last stop in his journey, of course, but it means a little bit more to him than simply an avenue to get a Super Bowl, right? He loved his teammates there. He liked the area quite a bit. He did some charity work here. And, of course, he stayed in Florida. He went to Miami, but he stayed in Florida. So pretty cool there. If I'm correct, I don't think James Wilder is in the Buccaneers Ring of Honor.
Correct. He is not.
And I think he should be, especially for the production he was able to give the Buccaneers. And quite frankly, for just how brutally that team drove him into the ground during a certain frame, just giving him a, quite frankly, unfathomable amount of carries and touches. I think his place should definitely be in the Ring of Honor. I mean, look, at 1984, he had 407 rushing attempts. and he had 85 receptions that year. So
It's like they didn't even take him off the field at all.
Yeah, that's I mean, honestly, malpractice, to be quite frank. But I mean, the contributions, that I mean, Tampa Bay is, he was 1,000-yard rusher twice for Tampa Bay. He caught for 685 yards in 1984. That production, being such a central part of that team and playing the way that he did, I think he certainly deserves an in there. So those are the first two that come to mind. I'm trying to think. We got Arians in there. Gruden's back in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting. There are a few fringe guys I think you could put in there. Some fringe contributors I'm trying to really think of. I mean, Jason Pierre-Paul played there for a little bit, Super Bowl contender. Had some good production there. Shaq Barrett since 2019 had a few good years in there, but William Golston was a Buck forever, right? I don't know if his stats really make it into that, but I mean, that's another guy who's played with the team for 1 trillion years and contributed. So, I'm sure there's a few names that I'm blanking on that aren't in yet. That would be better picks, but those two to me immediately come to mind. It's like, oh man, I think those two should definitely be in the ring. Man, what we were in, I was talking to Logan about this. We were in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine, and we got to see Indy's Ring of Honor, and like Jim Harbaugh's in their Ring of Honor, and he played for them for like 2 or 3 years. We were like watching drills and laughing about that. Like in the stands, like really. So the standards different, I think, across the league.
But I was gonna say the standard is definitely different for different organizations. For sure.
This is the same organization that hung an AFC South banner or AC.
Which that's now at what, Barstool Sports, or they got Andrew Luck to sign it. So
so not to blast the Colts for no reason on a Wednesday afternoon, but it'll be interesting to see who they go with next. But I think Simeon Rice is definitely a very deserving player, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think the James Wilder, Tom Brady thing, both of those guys make a ton of sense. James Wilder, just based on what you were saying, I mean, the production there, obviously he didn't get what a lot of other Buccaneers were able to get during his time here, but he means a hell of a lot to this organization, which is worthy of that. The production speaks for itself. Tom Brady obviously doing what he did, changing the culture, as River mentioned, bringing the Bucs their second Super Bowl was huge. And I just kind of want to go to some guys that are still with the organization. I know they're not able to get in while they're still active players or however it may be. But I think General Manager Jason Light should eventually get his name up there for what he's been able to do for the Bucs once he decides to hang him up. They're not only doing what he's done throughout the drafts. Obviously, he has help from his support staff, whether it be Spytech, Greenberg, all the rest of the scouts and everybody there as well. And then you look at a guy like a Levante David. I think he's got to be an absolute shoe-in for what he has done for this organization. That's what.
Yeah, and Levante might retire next year. And if he does, I mean, that might be immediately.
It's got to be. I mean, look how quickly Bruce went in. Bruce went in fairly quickly as well. So Levante, you got to think as soon as he hangs him up, he'll probably be that next season will probably be the return of Levante David, and he gets his name up there as well. And then another obvious one, an obvious twist in my opinion, would be Mike Evans and what he has meant to not only the organization, the Buccaneers as a whole, but the Tampa Bay community as well. It's been nothing but a presence. You might not know about it as much as some of the other guys, the Chris Godwin Foundation, things of that nature, but he does do a lot in the community. He just does it under, the shadows of everything else. He doesn't like the cameras to be on him at all times. So those are 3 guys in particular that are still with the Buccaneers that I would say absolutely should probably deserve to be in the Ring of Honor, going down later, depending on what happens with Chris Godwin throughout the rest of his career. You could probably make a case for him.
Another name I'll throw out there that after a very brief bit of research just now of players that aren't in, Warwick Dunn might be a decent pick as well. Only played with the Buccaneers for what looks to be like 6 years, but I mean, productive in those years. And also you want to talk about community guys. Very few players are as well known for their contributions to the community, both in Atlanta here and in Tampa Bay, like Warwick Dunn was during his playing time. So that could potentially be another name that you could look at. He's already in the Falcons Ring of Honor, but you could see another induction there too.
Yeah, that was gonna be my only thing with work.
Well, Tom's in the Patriots Ring of Honor.
Yeah,
So,
but yeah, I guess that's true.
but
Atlanta,
division rivals is that the whole thing? Yeah,
yeah, that's the
that's
whole
fair.
thing.
That's
I
fair.
love
That's
work,
fair.
and everybody's been able to see what Warwick's done, not only in his
Yeah.
career, but off the field as well. He's done
What
tremendous.
Warwick's done. Yeah.
What Warwick's done, that's play on words that I did not mean to throw out there, but
That's what I'm here for.
it worked exactly. River keeps me having fun, less strict on what I'm supposed to be doing. But if you guys are watching on X or Facebook, head over to our YouTube, subscribe, like. Once you subscribe, that's how you get notified. Hit that notification button. That's how you get notified we're going live every single time. Anytime a video is uploaded from us. So you're thinking press conferences, post game content, locker room interviews, everything of that nature. Well, training camps coming up, OTAs coming up. We'll have analysis from that from River and Logan. Both will be on scene. Hopefully, I'll be able to make it out there for some as well. That's where everything will be on YouTube. So head over there, check all that stuff out. Just type in Bucs Game Day right there in the search bar. That like button's right there. Try and get us to 50 likes. Try and get us to more subscribers. That is how we help pay our bills. And we really appreciate all the support that you guys send us every single week. But with that, River, we're going to keep things moving here. And there's some news, rule changes. Everything's been voted on as of today. The big ones ended up being it was the Detroit Lions about the divisional setup or the playoff setup when it comes in, how you can get reseeded after the first round. Teams with higher ranked or better records, might be able to leap a division winner based off of record at that point. That got pulled off the shelf right before it was sent to vote, and so that will not be happening at all, but it still could happen in the future, especially if we move to 18 games, because the whole premise behind that being making those end of the regular season games matter a little bit more, where guys or teams aren't resting guys per se, and making for experience there. And when it comes to viewership, obviously NFL loves their cash and would be loving to have more viewership as the season winds down right before the playoffs. Second biggest one, the tush push. It has not been banned as per early reports that it would be banned. It failed pretty miserably, 22-10. So we can dig into that a little bit as well. And then I think the other big one was the onside kick rule. Instead of it just being in the fourth quarter when the team is trailing to be able to pull off an onside kick, it is now allowed at any point during a game as long as the team is trailing. So that'll bring back kind of the old school way of onside kicks. But just your thoughts on those, River, and where you think the NFL is headed based on some of the things that were voted on today.
Yeah, I think a point of clarification there. I believe it needed 24 votes to pass, and it got 22. So 22-10 in that case, which ironically is the score that the Eagles defeated the Green Bay Packers by in the wild card round. And the Green Bay Packers were the one to posit this rule change. I think if you even vaguely are aware of football, everyone in your life has a take on the tush push. And so we can talk about ours. I am not in favor of banning it, so I think that's the right move. I think if anything, I was actually talking to David Harrison, our guy at Commanders Game Day, about this at the NFL Combine when this was first being discussed, and his perspective on it that I have come to understand and appreciate is that, there's a lot of rule breaking on that play that goes unnoticed. The center's always got his head over the ball. Everyone's off sides. And if there's any reason to ban it or enforce it, that would be the reason. But I'm kind of with a lot of people saying, if you can't stop it, don't try and ban it, right? And I find it rich that teams like the Bills tried it, failed, and then went, I guess we got to ban it. So the Bucs don't have a lot of problems with it, though. In that game against the Philadelphia Eagles in 2023, I guess technically the year 2024 season, they stopped it twice, actually. They stopped it on a third down and goal, and they ended up getting it on fourth call next play. But then there's a 2-point conversion that they tried to run it on once again.
It's also questionable, though. There was a little grab of a face mask, but
that happens. And that's another thing with tush push, right? There's a lot of stuff that goes on there that if you want to argue, that sort of thing happens, that's an argument to have. But the Bucs have done better against it than some other teams. The Jaguars, I know, are another team that have done pretty well against the tush push whenever they rarely play Philly. So there are teams that can stop it. There are teams that have Vita Vea, Caleb. And I think if that's the case, that should be sort of the standard going forward, that you can keep it, stop it. I don't know if there's any baseball fans out there, but I was also not a huge fan of banning the shift for the same reason, which some people would argue is a little bit different. But if you have a thing that you do, I don't like getting rid of it instead of trying to be innovative and stop it. So that's my take on it. But I think it's good. I think it's good for the Bucs. And Desmond Watson potentially. Got to lose a little bit of weight, but you could have another space eater on that line for the tush push weapon as well. Should he make the team? It's a good point, David. I think the Bucs aren't going to have as much problem stopping it because they seem to be doing well at that already. But in that case, a lot of people love to let the Eagles get to 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, right? They love to let them get within 1 yard. Easiest way to stop that is to not let them do that. So that's my
I'd have to disagree with you on the whole banning thing. I'm personally not for it. You go through the rules and everybody's offsides. The center heads over the thing.
Yeah.
The injury thing, not as big of a deal, but it's not a football play, right? It's a rugby play. And that's something that like agitates me a little bit. Is kind of like you're cheating the system, but it is what it is because there's one team that's really good at it, and there's teams that don't even attempt to do it. None of the other 31 teams really even try to attempt it. And
the Bills try and do their own little version of it.
Yeah,
it hasn't gone well.
So they kind of like run something out of it, right? Like they kind of like run a little scat thing or whatever with Josh Allen out of it. But not to the same success as you see with the Eagles. And again, I don't have a problem with them not banning it. I just am on the side of it being banned for those reasons in particular.
And it should be noted, too, that the Packers' rule wasn't really specifically banning the tush push. It was banning pushing, which was banned until 2005. They got rid of it in 2005 because no one ever called it for like 20 years. So,
and here we are.
Yeah, in theory, had this ban gone through, you might have legitimately just seen a similar thing. It ended up just being the tush push. So, but and again, it's not over. I don't think it's over. I think next year we're probably going to be having this same exact conversation. So
yeah, and I mean, I also have a couple of shares of Saquon Barkley in some fantasy leagues, so it kind of would have been nice, not to,
any AJ Brown fans were really pushing for this one.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, Saquon Barkley touchdowns would have gotten way up. I could sell.
Now I see it. Now I see it, Caleb. Now I see it. Yeah.
So it's ow. But any thoughts on the impacts of the other two? Obviously one being approved and one being taken off the shelf.
Yeah, I think the Lions proposal was quite frankly awful, and I'm glad that didn't even get talked about. They just got that out.
It would have been horrific for the Bucs, if we're being honest.
It would. And I wrote an article about this too, man. But in my eyes, you have to have a reward for winning your division. And the argument will be, oh, well, the division's bad. Well, yeah, but that's your first goal, right? Mm-hmm. When it's laid out in front of you, that's the first thing you have to do. You play those teams twice, and no matter how bad they are, you've won that division by doing that over the other 3 teams there. And you need to have some intrinsic sort of get from that. And in this case, it's a home field game, and you could be a 4 seed and end up playing against a really, really good, 5 seed or 6 seed or whatever. And that's really your punishment, in my eyes, for not having a good record and winning your division. And it often is.
I.e. see the Bucs in 2024.
Right, exactly. Right. I mean, they played a team, the Washington Commanders was more consistent, and if they had been better, they wouldn't have had to play that team. So,
right.
In my eyes, just getting rid of that, it just feels like a gimmicky sort of way to artificially inflate playoff matchups, and not a huge fan of that. And and David, you are correct in this case. The Bucs should be gunning for the 1 or 2 seed, and that's where I think this system really shines, is that there's still an incentive to do that, right? There's still an incentive to try and get that bye week, even outside of winning your division, even outside of getting your home game. There still is a way to try and win more games. So right now, I don't know what's wrong with that system intrinsically, besides the owners wanting to make more money and getting more marquee matchups. I didn't like the seventh team, but that's how it is. So glad that one didn't pass. The Olympics. Olympics is fun. Curious to see how NFL teams handled this because you could get hurt at the Olympics. So exactly who you send. And I think a thing that some people aren't talking about is that, it's not just going to be the American team that has NFL players. There's going to be NFL players probably on every team because that's how the World Baseball Classic works, right?
And
if you have great British heritage or you have, heritage from another country, you play for that country. The ability to get Olympic gold is not going to be passed up on from a lot of these NFL players if they have Nigerian heritage, if they have a European heritage of some sort, they're German, yada, yada. If you don't make the American team, then where do you go? So I think there's going to be a lot of NFL players participating, and I'm curious to see how the league kind of handles that because I know hockey is one sport. The NHL's governing body has been kind of a little bit on Olympics and stuff like that.
Well, that's why it hasn't been like you haven't seen the NHL have that in the Olympics since what I think it's over 10 years now that it's been that way until we had the four nations in the middle of the season, right? And we saw what happened with that. I mean, guys got hurt. A guy was hospitalized the rest of the year. Matthew Tkachuk was put on like injured reserve for hockey up until the playoffs, and so like there is that worry, right? That
there is.
Injured, although it's not tackle football, but these guys are still going to be playing football, but without pads.
Right. I mean, and non-contact injuries are what end up being the killer. You can get those in flag football just about as easily as you can get them in tackle football. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that works. Obviously, hockey and basketball play 1 trillion more games a year. But depending on, it's going to be in the summer. So it's going to be during that time where, hey, man, June, July, and August and May, we're doing stuff right now, right? We got OTAs, we got training camp coming up. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works and if rookies will be allowed to play or if not, or the opportunity. And it's very country-based. Your countries typically get to pick their sort of sports. And for America, it's flag football. So after 2028, I don't know how often flag football is going to be back on the docket. So I think a lot of players are going to want to play in this thing. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be fun. Like, I think it'll be awesome. Like, that would be so awesome to watch all these guys play flag football against each other. I mean, even in the Pro Bowl setting, it's obviously they're joking around. They're not taking it as serious because it is the Pro Bowl.
Shout out to the Romanian corner who has to cover Justin Jefferson. I've already got prayers out to that guy. That's gonna be
right. But when you add in that national pride, and you're going out to represent your country, things are going to heat up a bit. I mean, if you aren't a big hockey fan, go watch the Four Nations highlights on YouTube.
It was crazy.
Or wherever it is.
The World Baseball Classic was awesome.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the best baseball I've ever watched. Yeah.
It's electrifying, right? These guys go all out to represent their country. And you think about it, these guys are also probably playing each other in their respective leagues at the same time, whether they're on the same team and now they're going to be on opposite teams or whatever it may be. So it's going to be like one of the only times they get the opportunity to do so. So I think it'd be awesome. The fact that it's in LA makes it all that much better. Everybody's probably going to want to attend that out of the Olympics. So really, really cool stuff. If you guys want to get your comments up here, like David has, like Michael is throwing up here right now, talking about best offensive players in the drafts. With Bucco, we're going to get to some of the rookies here in a little bit. So we'll be able to bring his comments up here as well. If you guys want your comments, if you guys have questions for us as well, you'll have to head over to our YouTube so we're able to get those up. We can't bring them up through X. And if they're on Facebook, we can't get those up in either. So we really appreciate it. If you guys have any interest in getting your comments, your questions up here, head over to YouTube. That's how you do so. Subscribe while you're there as well. Like our stuff. We really appreciate the support as always. But continue on this 2025 trend. Now that we're looking ahead, OTAs coming up, training camp coming up as well. We've got a couple guys that are going to be entering their second year. You think about Graham Barton, Chris Braswell, Tyke Smith, Jalen McMillan, Bucky Irving, Elijah Klein, Devin Colt. Those are your draft picks from last season. We saw the emergence of Bucky Irving in year one. We saw the eventual emergence of Jalen McMillan there at the end of the season, scoring, 7 touchdowns over the course of 5 games. But, River, I want you to give me your second-year breakout candidates for the Buccaneers here in 2025?
I thought Graham Barton already had a pretty good year at center, but I think some of the things we saw with him, there were some problems in the exchange of the football, some high snaps, some low snaps, some miscommunications there in that final game against Washington. You have so much more time to devote yourself to your craft in your second year as a football player, because in your rookie offseason, you're just trying to do everything to get drafted. You're going to visits, you're going to the Senior Bowl, you're going to the Combine, you're doing interviews. So there's not a lot of time to play football. And I think now that Graham Barton is back at center for the first time since his freshman year at Duke, he's had NFL experience in 1 year, and he did a really good job in the blocking aspects. He's a mauler. It's exactly what the Bucs need. I think he's going to look a lot more polished in year two, and I think he's going to get all that stuff under control and then really just dial it in at the center position, and that could make the Bucs offensive line even better, right? So I'm excited for that. He does need to do that. He does need to get a little bit smoother on the transition, and I think with this offseason he will. Tyke Smith is another interesting one. As long as he's healthy, he could be a great safety for the Bucs, and I think he had some problems in that intermediate coverage area last year. And now, when you put him at safety, not as much is in front of him or behind him, I should say. So he might be able to really dial in his coverage instincts, his instincts as a hitter, and getting to the ball. That might be a really good move for him, actually. So I think it might be fun. Jalen needs to get on the field. I think Emeka Egbuka is wide receiver 3. He's with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think it's kind of unfortunate for Jalen McMillan because he played really well at the end of last year. But he can get on the field. He can show us what he's got. We'll see how many 4 wide receiver sets that Josh Broussard's interested in running this year. That's a Miami Dolphins thing, and he used to work under Mike McDaniel there. So you might see a little bit more of that, but it's a little unfortunate that this happened to Jalen McMillan because the Bucs went BPA, but we'll see.
Yeah, and you pointed out 3 guys. I think Jalen, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. Barton, I think he's going to be able to clean that up pretty fairly.
I do too. And I think it'll help the whole offensive line.
Right, it'll flow a little bit better. You'll be able to see it, the ball getting back there, probably quicker, probably cleaner. Him and Baker probably have been working all offseason on this anyways and just taking time to do it. Tyke Smith as well. I think he just kind of was there at moments, and then at moments you'd be like, where is he? Moving to safety will be interesting because that's not where his natural position is, but he can play that just based on his versatile skill sets as well. So it'll be awesome to see. But I think Chris Braswell is kind of the one that sticks out to me the most, where he kind of has to break out, right? Like, it's not necessarily that he is going to break out, even though there is speculation that he's having a great offseason up to this point. Yeah. They're really excited about what he's going to be able to bring in 2025, but he kind of has to, right? Like,
he has to.
You didn't really hear his name a whole lot last year, and the whole thing with him was he's an elite pass rusher. That was his deal when he was at the University of Alabama. So where is that coming from? He's still getting acclimated to NFL speed, which is like, why are you still getting acclimated to NFL speed after one season? And then they really
playing in the SEC, of course, which, as we all know, is a great conference for football.
Right. Okay. Yeah. SEC, whatever. But anyways, yeah. I mean, Yaya Diaby got to the backfield plenty last year. Chris Braswell was expected to kind of help him out in that area and didn't really come to fruition. So Hassan Reddick comes in. Braz is probably gonna. We'll see, what kind of snap counts he's going to be able to get. But if he's able to, come in and rotate in there with those guys and be a force, then the Buccaneers edge rushing group can go from perhaps one of the worst in the league last year in getting home and in the quarterback to potentially one of the better units in the league if Chris is able to take that next step and be one of those breakout candidates for the Bucs this year. I'm hopeful that he is going to be able to do so, because you don't want it to be a wasted second-round pick when you look back at it, hindsight 2020. So, David saying in here he loves the Reddick signing as well as drafting Walker, which we're going to get to him here in a little bit as well. So that'll be awesome. David also saying every one of our O-linemen takes a huge jump in year 2, and I think Barton had the best year 1 of them all. So another great point there as well, that he's expecting Barton to take another huge jump like most other Buccaneers offensive
And
linemen.
he very well could.
You look at what Cody was able to do. You look at Gadecki was able to do in his second season. So truth is being told there as well. But let's move on from second years. Let's go to the rookies. River, a lot of rookies, defense, capped off bookend, however you want to talk about it, with the two wide receivers, Tez Johnson and Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, who Michael appears to be extremely high on as the best offensive player in the NFL draft from
that is very high.
Ohio State University there as well. But David also mentioning, Kappa, Marpet, when they were here as well, also took that second jump in year two.
Yep.
But rookie of the year cases, some of these guys could have a case, whether it be offensive or defensive rookie of the year for our draft picks. Pick three guys out of that seven that could potentially be in the running for either one of those awards.
Well, to be rookie of the year, you got to play a lot, and you got to play a lot at a premier position. Right. So unfortunately, I don't know if Jacob Parrish is going to have a shot at an award like that. Emeka Egbuka might not play enough to have a shot at an award like that. Tez Johnson will probably be a kick returner / punt returner. So that's going to limit him as well. If anybody, you got to be able to play. You got to be able to get on the field. David Walker is probably going to be a rotational guy, right? The big guy that sticks out as someone who could play enough would be Benjamin Morrison, right? Out of Notre Dame, corner. He would need to get on the field more than Jamel Dean, which is still not out of the question.
It's probably a 50-50 shot.
Right, because it depends on what the Bucs want to do with Jamel Dean, right? Let's say you have a competition in camp and you like Morrison more, well, then you got to ship Dean off, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, if you like Dean more, then Morrison gets to sit there and learn, and that's a benefit to him intrinsically as well. So it's kind of a win-win for the Bucs, I think, in the short term. But as far as rookie of the year goes, I think he might be the guy that is going to be able to play, and you can be a outside corner and be rookie of the year. It's harder to be a nickel corner and do that because you're not going to play 30, 20% of the snaps, right? But Morrison was a ball hawk at Notre Dame. 9 interceptions in 31 games, which is very, very impressive. Has to come back from injuries, and that will be his big concern. It's actually a surgery he had on his hip that was not due to injury, it was due to underlying condition. He was already out there doing individual drills at rookie minicamp, though, so that's a good sign. But if anyone's going to be rookie of the year, it's probably not going to be a rotational guy like Walker or Roberts. Or like a nickel guy like Parrish. It might be someone who starts and has the most opportunity to get the most snaps and not be backed up behind someone. Every rookie the Bucs drafted, they're all kind of backed up behind somebody, interestingly enough. But Morrison is the chance to not be. So I think I'd go with him.
Yeah, it's hard to pick really because all these guys have been impactful at their respective colleges, right? Like all these guys have produced at a high level and, have been on winning teams, and we've seen that. But I think it's got to be either of the two wide receivers, right? I know the whole Tez thing is about being a returner and probably where he's going to be best at, but
he could be a really good returner.
He could be a really good returner, but on the flip side, if there's injuries in the wide receiver room and he gets his opportunity, or maybe he just shows flashes to where he's just this polished guy that can come in and immediately impact the game, as well as Emeka Egbuka, because we've seen what he's able to do. Obviously, he's been overshadowed his whole entire career at Ohio State by other wide receivers as well, and he was still able to produce at a high level. And so, if he's slotted in as the number 3 guy on a regular basis, even if there are running 4 wide receiver sets, all the attention's obviously paid on Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and that's going to open up the field a ton for whoever the number 3 and number 4 guys are, no matter who's covering him. So I think you got to look on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball, I think there's a little bit more depth there. The worries with Morrison and what he's coming back from surgery-wise and trying to get on the field. But if he does, and he's able to return to 100%, he's a ball hawk. And, if he's on the field and he comes away with the interceptions that the Buccaneers and the turnovers that the Buccaneers have been talking about this whole offseason about what they need to do better, I just think that there's just so much on the defensive side of the ball where they're kind of gonna, like you said, be in rotation, and unless a guy just comes out and performs like he's God or something like that,
Yeah, right.
it's gonna be a little bit harder. But I think Tez is probably my pick just because it's an under the radar, thing, and like
It's fun. It's fun.
it's fun to say. I mean, I love the way he plays. He's smooth. He's a little twitchy. He toe taps. He catches the ball. Like his hands are soft. Like this guy has the potential to be a really, really, really good weapon that not a lot of people are going to be paying attention to, a la Bucky Irving last season. So that would be my pick. I'm excited about all of them though, and that's just something that I think everybody is. I think all Buccaneers fans are probably very excited about that. And yeah, David agrees with me. I've been looking for a smaller gadget guy for years. Tez could finally be that guy. I agree.
Yeah.
You could use him in a wealth of things. Your favorite River, using him at snap motions, bringing him across the field and things of that nature. So getting a gadget guy in there that can play both. I mean, pairing him with a guy like Rashad White, putting them both on the outside and just throwing a little mix of something in there, bringing one back into the backfield with Bucky Irving, slotting another guy out. Like that's fun. Like that
seems like you have a lot of plans for Tez Johnson. I think you should email Josh Gazard about that.
Yeah, let me just, dear Josh.
Yeah, exactly. I wrote you, but you still ain't calling. Yeah.
I was sitting in front of the TV with 2 glasses of wine and came up with this great idea.
You gotta put him in at snap motion. You gotta put him in pre-snap motion. You gotta do all this.
Throw him on defense if you like. Just get the guys in.
Yeah, come on. He's a weapon. I don't think you understand this. Yeah, it's gonna be from a logistical standpoint. I know Tez was like, "Oh, I really want to go play for the Bucs." Bucky's there. We talked about it together, and that's great. From a logistical standpoint, he's coming into an absolutely stacked wide receiver room, right? And so that kind of sucks for him, I think.
Yeah.
He's going to have a lot of time in preseason to make a splash and show what he can do. Catching footballs from Gator great Kyle Trask. And then he's going to have a lot of time to carve out his own sort of role in the special teams. So I think he could be a big contributor to this team. ROI is a lot, but I think with a 7th round pick on him when other teams didn't grab him, he could enter feasibly if he's able to translate his college skills to the NFL level, as a wide receiver 4 or, maybe even 3 in a really weak room. But he's not in a really weak room. He's in a really strong room.
Yeah.
So I think how much playtime he gets will be crucial to that sort of thing.
Yeah, it'll be important to pay attention to all the KPIs of these guys, to look at those ROIs, if you will, for you business people out there, looking at those key performance indicators for your return on investment here.
That's definitely English.
With your training camp and OTAs right around the corner. But we'll keep things moving here. I'm very up there with the guys, the fans, the media, the analysts who believe that the Buccaneers could be Super Bowl contenders in 2025. I love their roster. I love how things are built. Todd Bowles is bringing in a guy that's going to be able to help him with the game management and everything of that nature, which is huge. New, fresh faces in on the offense. Obviously, a little bit of change coming in there as well. So I do think there is a path for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to reach the Super Bowl in 2020-25. But you're going to have to look at their schedule, River, and tell me, where does Tampa Bay need to steal wins, and where are they going to have to avoid those letdowns that has kind of become synonymous with Todd Bowles' tenure here in Tampa Bay? And for your own good, I've brought on the schedule just for you. So
you did this for me? Man. That week 3 game against the New York Jets, the Bucs should obliterate that team. I am not a fan of Justin Fields. I never have been a fan of Justin Fields. The last time he came to Raymond James Stadium, if Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts, I think Justin Fields was perhaps seeing a being of far greater power and importance. He was having a lot of trouble there. As a passer, I think he's got a lot of work to do. And so when you get this New York Jets team with Aaron Glenn as a first-year head coach in his career, a sort of retooled, rebuilding Jets squad, I think you got to really beat them. And the Bucs had that opportunity against, granted, a Broncos team that ended up being pretty decent. But at the time, we're kind of struggling to find their identity, and they just got throttled. And you can't have those type of games. And that's going to be a measure of Todd Bowles' success. If you have a similar thing this year, where the Bucs kind of get buried early and they lose a lot of these games they shouldn't lose, and Todd Bowles' defense still looks a little soft in coverage, you're going to have to ask questions. You're going to have to start asking questions. And I think Todd Bowles knows that. And the players love him. He's going to have a retooled defense. And he's been an innovator in the past in that front. So he's a lot of opportunity to make up some ground as a head coach this year. But he's got to be able to beat those teams like the New York Jets, right? Like the New England Patriots in Week 10. Somewhat scary of a team with Mike Vrabel there, Drake May in his second year. They for sure could come out and shock you. But if you want to win a Super Bowl and you want to beat the best teams in the league and you want to prove yourself as a contender, they can't shock you. No one can shock you. So those types of games, they have to just go out and beat. And 11-6 in 13 games. If you want to be a marquee team, you have to win 13 games, right? I mean, 11 is great as well. It'd be one more than last year. To continue Todd Bowles' try to winning exactly one more game than he did the year before. And that would be good for the Buccaneers. I think 11 wins on this schedule would be very good. But you have to prove, if everyone says, the Bucs are an up-and-comer in the NFC, they're an up-and-coming contender, you can't be an up-and-coming contender forever. You got to just go out there and be a contender. And that means you can't lose games against the New York Jets. You can't lose games against the New England Patriots. You can't get beat by the Arizona Cardinals. So we'll see how it goes, but I think those are the games that they really have to lock in on.
Yeah, and any ones that the Buccaneers should steal away in order to be, considered that as a Super Bowl contender. Like, which games here on this list? I mean, there's a few that I can look at, pointing towards Bills. That would be big. The Lions, obviously. The Eagles would be big ones. But any
absolutely.
Okay.
I've mentioned it before. That away game at Buffalo is an AFC opponent, so the stakes aren't as high, right? But that's going to be a really hard game to win. That's going to have the reigning MVP Josh Allen. That's going to be a staunch Buffalo Bills team. It's in November. It's not going to be freezing cold, but it's going to be decently chilly. And to go on the road and beat a team like that would be a huge statement win, but it would also prove that this team can just go out and beat anybody. You're going to lose games, most of the time. But really, it's about the games that you can get in there in hostile environment conditions against a really well-coached team and come out on top. And I think that Buffalo Bills game could be the big statement game, even though they're not an NFC team. They're a marquee team, not just in the AFC, but in the NFL. And the Lions have shown that they can be that as well. And the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl last year. So those are also similar type of scenarios. But this is going to be on the road in a very, very, I think, hostile environment. So will Detroit. Detroit's going to be another game. Those fans are crazy. I think the best football atmosphere I've ever been in was that playoff game against Detroit that the Bucs played in 2023. And, man, I've seen some Florida Gators games against Joe Burrow's LSU, Tigers. I've seen some crazy games there in the swamp, and nothing was like that Detroit Lions game. So when they want to get it pumping, they can. That's going to be a hostile environment as well. So I'd say those two.
Yeah. I think the problem with last year, right, with beating the Philadelphia Eagles so early, beating the Detroit Lions so early, is that everybody started hopping on the Buccaneers bandwagon, right? Then we saw what that led to. Then everything kind of fell apart right before the bye week. And it was just kind of a lot, like it was just like the Buccaneers weren't able to handle that pressure. So if you beat the Eagles there again early in week 4, is that going to be like a false door, if you will? Like, is that going to be a door that like you're just going to fall trap to again? And then I know Marcel brings up here defense pressure Stafford. Bucs beat the Rams there in week 12. That could be another big game that you point to, considering that it's the NFC. It depends on kind of where the Rams are at in their season and their record, which all expectations are they're expected to, take another leap than where they were last year's.
And they won a playoff game last year, and they almost beat the Eagles in the division round. They were a drive away. So they're tough.
So that would be an absolute statement win. I think, especially later in the year, how things are kind of unfolding. If you want to take the Bucs seriously as a contender, that is a great spot to do it. If you rip off back-to-back weeks of beating the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Rams on the road, then yeah, you absolutely should be taken seriously. Don't know if that is going to happen or be the case, but it is a question mark. And Michael's coming up here, kind of hollering at you, River. And when you talk about Justin Fields, do you guys understand that he played behind the worst offensive line in Chicago? The Chicago Bears are trash and still are.
Well, Michael Colwell, I must be transparent here. I went to UF, but my family is from Michigan, so perhaps some subconscious bias there. I mean, anyone can thrive in the right situation, and you are correct. The Bears' offensive line was not very good, but I will just say from personal experience and from watching Justin and how he played. When he played against the Bears that time against the Bucs, I remember sitting there in the press box and just watching him look down the field and be so hesitant to pull the trigger. And at one point, he went to go run in a running lane, and he stopped and then looked upfield again. And I think just as a passer, he needs a lot of refinement in that area to be able to really be an NFL quarterback. And you look at his completion percentage, 58, 60, 61, up to 65 last year for the Steelers. He's getting a little bit better in that instance and a little bit better of a situation. But I'm just not a huge fan of him as a prospect at quarterback. And I think if he comes into Raymond James Stadium under a new regime in New York, without a ton of weapons over there, Garrett Wilson's fantastic, obviously. But and you got Brees Hall down there as running back too. But very top heavy depth there. I think the Bucs could readily take advantage of him, just like they did when he came into play for the Chicago Bears. So that's just a game that you got to win. You got to win that if you're Tampa Bay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love to see the progression of Justin Fields, right? Like he's progressed every year, but let's not forget that the Bears did him no favors. They didn't help him in learning the.
Yeah, I acknowledge that.
They didn't help change. They didn't help change his footwork. They just kind of let him be him, and that's not always going to be the thing. And I mean, when you saw him go to Pittsburgh, he was a 500 quarterback, and obviously much better. So it'll be interesting to see what he does in New York. Again, I don't think he's going to be in as great as a situation in New York as he was in Pittsburgh. So I do agree with you there. But it is a game the Buccaneers should win, but it's also one of those games that you can't be caught lacking, right? Like this could be one of the Todd Bowles games that's like, what are you doing? Like what is going on? And that's the games that the Buccaneers are going to avoid. You look at that. You look at a game like potentially against the Arizona Cardinals where they're a well-known team to fall apart later in the season as it progresses. And if the Bucs drop that one at home as well, not a very good look there. And then I don't know what we're going to get out of the Miami Dolphins either. So late in the season.
They're always hurt late in the season.
Not a great time to drop a game there either in between your 4 division games. And you lose some of that momentum heading into week 18, which we saw what the Buccaneers needed in week 18 last year. They needed to win and get a little help, and they were able to do so. So there's a lot to unpack. We're going to continue to talk about things as OTAs start rolling through, training camps start rolling through. We've got a ton of different topics, different content ideas that we are going to start bringing you guys. So with that being said, guys, head over to BucsGameday.com. Check out a bunch of our articles. River just wrote one about the tush push thing, probably gave a little bit of analysis and his personal opinions on the matter as well. If you guys are watching on Facebook or on X, please head over to our YouTube. Just type in BucsGameday right there in the search bar. It'll bring you to our page. Hit like if you like the show. Comment. Once we're live, you're able to bring your comments. You saw we bringing them up all episode. Questions as well when they're relevant to what we were speaking about, we are able to bring those up. If not, I'll be able to try and get to them if we are talking about that topic later in the show. And then, of course, subscribe as well, guys. We really appreciate that. Once you subscribe, click that notification button. You will be notified whenever we're going live, whenever a new video is posted, whether it be press conferences, post-game content, locker room interviews, training camp analysis after that, since that is coming up relatively quickly. And if you are watching on our YouTube, we would love for you to boost our likes. That's how we help pay the bills. The views, the likes, the subscriptions, all of that is what we love. And we love the support that you guys give us each and every week we're on here. We're going to start probably doing more and more shows as things start to kind of get down to the nitty gritty and we quickly approach the 2025 season. But with that being said, River, I want to thank you as always for joining me. And that will be
Thank
all
you for hosting, Caleb.
Oh, of
Thank you
course,
for
man.
hosting.
I really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
I try my best to do my job as the
He's
producer
killing
and
it out
host
there,
of Here the
guys. He's
Cannons.
killing it out there.
But with that being said, guys, thank you once again for tuning in and fire the cannon.